What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the AEW Week in Review. I am your host, Mark Perry, editor of Pro Wrestling News Hub, covering pro wrestling and not sports entertainment. On this week's show, PAC is back, AEW video game news, Jade Cargill, we'll get to her, and more, plus recaps of this week's Dynamite and Dark and the latest TV ratings. So how do you get in touch with the show? You email podcast at Pro Wrestling News Hub with your MP3s, or you can call 888-430-7692, extension 3. Remember, cutoff time is 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. We got Mr. Fourth Row checking in on his thoughts and your grades. We'll get into those for AEW Full Gear. We give you A, B, C, or F. Next week's show, question of the week, should PAC reform Death Triangle? I'm not really sure he should. I'm curious to hear what you guys got to think. So, without further ado, folks, let's just get into the week that was AEW. All right, let's get to the AEW Dark results for November 10th, 2020. First, Chaos Project defeated TNT. Now, TNT is actually the sons of Devon Dudley. That's his sons on that. The Acclaimed defeated Louis Val and Justin Black. Top Flight defeated Baron Black and Frankie Thomas. Word is that Top Flight might have signed with AEW. We get a little Peter Avalon private dinner and elevator segment. We wonder what his character is going to be doing. The Hybrid 2 defeated Adam Priest and Shawn Dean. Lucha Bros, one of my favorites, defeated Ashton Starr and David Ali. Leva Bates defeated Danny Jordan. Surprised to see Leva Bates. So we haven't seen her in the ring in a while. And I think Danny Jordan, it's been a while too. 5, Allen Angels of the Dark Order defeated Fuego del Sol. Ivelisse and Diamante defeated Dream Girl Ellie and Genocide in a tag match. And finally, your main event, Jurassic Express, defeated Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela. Here is the AEW Dynamite results for November 11th. We got the winners, grades, and highlights. First up, we're live from Jacksonville and Daly's Place. This is the Fallout show after AEW Full Gear. First up, we had Matt Sydal versus Brian Cage. This took a little while to get going, and then it turned into a pretty decent match. Winner, Brian Cage. I gave this a 3.50. I don't know if this was the strongest one to start with. Brian Cage seemed a little rusty. Definitely needs to get some more matches under his belt. After the match, Cody Rhodes comes out. Apparently, we're getting a match with Shaquille O'Neal is interested. And I forget the girl's name that came out with it. She was talking all sorts of smack. Then Brandy Rhodes came out, was talking smack about her. So there's something going on between maybe Cody Rhodes and Shaq. If you remember, on AEW Fallout, actually they had a backstage segment and Shaq was sitting there. So once she said Shaq, I wasn't surprised. So Shaq and Cody Rhodes might have something going on there. Jon Moxley checks in, talking about Kenny Omega. It's tough to beat him twice. There's no question about that. And they mark it on your calendars, Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega, not for AEW Revolution, but actually December 1st. December 2nd, it will be Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega for AEW World Championship match on Dynamite. This is interesting. They've done this before, and I think you need to hype something up to get you in between and before the Christmas break and get you to buy some merch, perhaps. So we get Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega. We don't have to wait to February for that. The Bunkhouse match, the Natural Nightmares, Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall versus the Butcher and the Blade. I'm not a big fan of like the whole blood and guts thing and weapons deal. It's not what interests me in wrestling anymore. I heard Bubba Dudley talking about, or Bully Ray talking about on Busted Open Radio, that he was kind of over these kind of matches. And I'm kind of with you. I'm half the time the blood is fake. Winner, the Natural Nightmares. I gave this a 3.75. I mean, it had some good, interesting spots. Again, these matches don't really do anything for me. I don't know what else to tell you about that. We got a Matt Hardy checks in, talking about don't squander what I've given you to Sammy Guevara. not really sure what we're going to do with Matt Hardy's character now. I've talked about it before that I feel like he needs to go back to the broken Matt gimmick and stick with that. Then he's like normal Matt and broke. Like I don't even know what he is. Maybe now he's got something going forward. We'll see. Let him be creative and see what he can come up with. The Inner Circle introduction. This was much to do about nothing. Sammy Guevara wasn't there. But basically the big thing is that leading up, of course, some of the Inner Circle, Santana, specifically Ortiz is not a big fan of MJF coming to the Inner Circle. I know this is setting up for something big going forward. MJF is now taking them all to Las Vegas. I assume it's going to be not Las Vegas. It will be a casino in Jacksonville or something like that, or in the area where they can film this segment. But it should be interesting. I like that little twist, and it was all right segment. Young Bucks check in. They said they'll take on Top Flight next week on AEW Dynamite. That should be interesting. Heard a lot of good things about Top Flight. They just appeared on AEW Dark. Singles match, Scorpio Sky versus Shawn Spears. We were supposed to get this a week or so ago, but we couldn't last week because Scorpio Sky was around somebody with Rona, but he didn't have Rona, so he's good, and we were able to get this match in. I would like to see their little feud keep going. Winner, Shawn Spears. I gave it a 3.50. It was okay. I think Scorpio Sky, I've said this for a while, both of these guys need some kind of push. I like that they were having a little feud on Dynamite. Let's see. It'd be interesting to see who would take these two guys and do something with them. I feel like there's something that should be done with them. Not really sure what it is, though. Kenny Omega checks in, talking about the cleaner maybe coming back. That's a good thing. That's what we all want to see. Again, he was the best wrestler in the world like 2 years ago. Let's put him back on that spot. I think Kenny Omega is a guy that can carry a company. He just needs to go back to that gimmick or, make something up new. Give it a little twist to it. Tay Conte versus Red Velvet. This actually turned out to be a good match. Good to see Tay Conte back in there after the whole Abaddon situation where Abaddon got hurt in her match. Well, Red Velvet looks good too. I mean, both of them looked good. I feel like the women's matches are starting to get better. Winner Tay Conte. I gave this a 2.50, not the 2.75. But again, I was giving these matches like 2s earlier. I thought this was good. I might have gotten a little bit higher, but again, Serena Deeb had a much better match, and I gave that a 2.75. But definitely improvements are coming from the women's division, and I think Tay Conte and Red Velvet are good wrestlers. I think they'll just do fine. The Inner Circle checks in. They're all excited about going to Las Vegas, and Sammy Guevara shows up. Apparently, he only got one email and that told him to go to the beach. And MJF said, no, I sent you one. So I think there's something setting up. I think we're going to set up something with Sammy Guevara and potentially MJF, which is two stars in AEW. There's no question about that. Finally, we got the match of the night, the one that I've been super hyped about since they announced it, Penta El Zero Miedo versus Rey Fenix. Again, this was a fantastic match. You knew it was. I wasn't sure how they were going to go with it because they already did a good job. And it kind of telegraphed me a little bit because I'm like, why are we doing this again? And then it got me thinking about this big surprise that Tony Khan had mentioned. We'll get into that in a second. But the match was fantastic. As always with these two guys, they were ripping each other's masks off. I don't think it was good as the first one, but you can't get... that was close to perfection anyways. This was still a great match. Winner, Penta El Zero M. Grade, I gave this a 4.50. This was the elite match of the night. And I was like, I wonder... We had a package from PAC, the Bastard, last week. And these two guys wrestling again, which I thought I was like, okay, I'm excited to see it, but why are we doing this? Well, we got the answer. PAC is back. The Bastard returns. He wants a piece of Eddie Kingston to break up, remember, the Death Triangle, whatever their deal it was at the time. Then they didn't really get to do anything. I mean, there's Death Triangle-like logo. And so PAC is back, going to take on Eddie Kingston, and these two guys are going to go at it, and it should be a fantastic match. But that was it for AEW Dynamite. Next week's card, AEW card, should be a slobber knocker. Well, it still should be pretty good. Of course, the big news is PAC will make his return to the ring. That's the most exciting part. But what we got going on is first we got a tag match, Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin versus Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. I really think we're going to get something big going on with Darby Allin and Ricky Starks. I think these two guys are poised to have a long program going back and forth. I think that will be good. Inner Circle will be in Las Vegas. We'll see what happens to there. Like I said, I think that this will be filmed in Jacksonville. It should be a pretty interesting, fun segment. We'll see how that goes. Tag match, Young Bucks versus Top Flight. We'll get a chance to hear the hyped Top Flight, one of the top tag teams in the indie scene. It'll be really interesting to see these guys go at it. Definitely check out their match on AEW Dark. Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy will be that match after Kip Sabian slapped him in the face. Looks like we'll have some kind of long program for Kip Sabian and Orange Cassidy and Best Friends and Miro, which should be good. And then the big match would be exciting to get back in the ring. PAC versus The Blade. Finally, PAC getting back in. So I guess PAC is going to feud with Eddie Kingston's crew for a little while there. So it's good to see PAC back in the ring. We'll see how rusty he is. And that will be for next week's AEW Dynamite. Ratings are in for the November 11th, 2020 AEW Dynamite. According to a report by Showbuzz Daily, AEW finished 17th overall for the night. Dynamite drew 764,000 viewers, slightly up from last week's 717,000 viewers. They finished 56th overall last week because of all the election stuff. Dynamite was live this week at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. It featured the Fallout show from AEW Full Gear, which we saw PAC come back, and this potential feud with Shaq and Cody were some of the big news items for the day. NXT drew 632,000 viewers, up from last week's 610. It finished 56 overall. Last week they finished 68th overall. The show featured NXT Tag Team Champions Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch with Pete Dunne versus Breezango. I thought they were on the main roster. Okay. Total combined wrestling audience for both shows was slightly up, 1.396 million viewers. It was at 1.327 million viewers last week, so slightly up. Why? Where were all these people? Well, based on the ratings, it's all about the news channel. News, and more news. News programming took 14 of the top 15 spots. CNN had 11 of those spots, and it's really interesting because usually it's been a Fox News thing, but I guess more of the public on the left side of the aisle versus the right are starting to be concerned about what's going on in the world, so they're all tuning into CNN. I don't even know where MSNBC is on this. Only Real Housewives of the OC came in at number 8. That was the only show that made it in the top 15. Now, AEW Dynamite finished third among non-news shows for the night, which is great, and that's kind of where they usually land in the 50-plus demo. For those interested, it was at 0.27, which is around where they usually are. So again, I thought that the news cycle would drop off, especially that we've been named a president. So I thought maybe that would drop. And I thought even if it was going to be a news cycle that Fox News would be dominant. But no, CNN is dominating, which is really kind of interesting shift. But will it drop off maybe next week? We'll have to find out. But it's definitely impacting ratings for AEW. AEW CEO Tony Khan clarifies his, quote, balance of power tweet. So before last night's episode of AEW Dynamite, President and CEO Tony Khan tweeted out that, quote, the balance of power in wrestling will shift tonight, close quote, in a tweet. This got fans all speculating that it was some huge announcement. What he said is, quote, tonight we have a great lineup for AEW Dynamite live on TNT at 8, blah, blah, blah. For the rest of 2020, AEW will keep delivering great matches on Wednesday nights. Plus, there are massive surprises ahead. Please join us on TNT tonight. The balance of power in wrestling will shift tonight. Khan was asked by PW Insider to clarify the tweet, and the CEO issued the following statement, quote, there's more to come. PAC coming back is the beginning of a huge push for the rest of the year. As I said in my last tweet just now, balance of power and storyline refers to Eddie's strong power base as a character, which could be threatened, but it also refers to the big push AEW is making for the rest of the year and through December and into 2021, close quote. PAC made his AEW debut at the end of Dynamite, setting up a feud with Eddie Kingston. They also teased Shaquille O'Neal, Cody Rhodes feud, so I get it. It was definitely a big show, not like Sting showed up or anything. Khan posted the following after Dynamite went off the air, quote, thank you everyone for who watched Dynamite tonight. It's great to get PAC back in AEW. We've made some big announcements and huge matches for next week and for weeks to come. Into December, tonight opened a new chapter. I promise indelible moments on Dynamite are still coming in 2020. So there you have it. So he's still pumped up. He's not backing off of that statement. He's saying big things are coming to AEW Dynamite over the next couple months. Reba Hardy, wife of Matt Hardy and regular on-screen talent, has a reputation for being a little bit outspoken. Back in September, she was vocal, and rightly so, on her criticism of AEW regarding how they handled Matt Hardy's concussion during his match with Sammy Guevara at All Out. In a Twitter outburst, she claimed that everyone involved in the building should be ashamed of themselves. We remember that. Therefore, many fans were surprised, actually, to see Reba, as I was, appear at the climax of the recent Elite Deletion match. I was even surprised that she showed up on Dynamite a couple days later. Reba appeared at the climax of the recent Elite Deletion match between Hardy and Guevara at Full Gear. However, according to a recent Jim Cornette drive-thru episode, Reba was allegedly somewhat difficult to work with during filming. Someone who worked on the production side of the Elite Deletion match noted Reba's difficult behavior. Quote, rule number 1 was for no one to speak to Reba Hardy unless she spoke to them, and don't park any production trucks, vehicles, or put any equipment near her car. Reba filmed a scene in the warehouse by Matt's home where she played piano, but everyone was made to wait outside while she filmed. Everyone was just standing around waiting, close quote. Unsurprisingly, Reba already hit back at Cornette on Twitter, yet this is the third grown-ass man in 3 months who don't even know me, to straight up shut blah, blah, blah. So she was just very not happy. You can check out the episode of Jim Cornette and see what the fuss is about. All Elite Wrestling signs Jade Cargill to the AEW women's division. This is the first time I've actually seen them put out a press release about this stuff. So AEW announced a multi-year deal with rising wrestling sensation Jade Cargill. We remember her. She appeared last night on AEW Dynamite. She said, quote, I joined AEW because I have a voice. I'm ready to shake up the women's division. I'm going to flip this promotion on its head, close quote. She had a big feud with Brandy Rhodes and Cody, and maybe Shaq will be involved. She was a pretty built person. There's no question about that. Of course, Jade, some background on her, played basketball at Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida, and brings a high level of athleticism and intensity to the AEW's women's division. With her background as a professional trainer and explosive demeanor on the mic, Jade is poised to make a powerful impression inside and outside of the ring. So Jade Cargill is now All Elite. Whether or not AEW were going to run house shows was a big talking point around the time of AEW's conception. However, speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Metzler revealed the original house show schedule Tony Khan was planning to run through 2020, so he kind of has an idea. The original plans were for 20 shows a year alongside the 4 pay-per-views and 52 tapings of Dynamite. Quote, AEW isn't going to run around doing house shows, I can tell you that. When AEW first started, the original thing that Tony Khan told me was 52 TV shows, 4 pay-per-views, and around 20 house shows a year. They would do the house shows maybe every other week. He was talking to me about how you wouldn't do any house shows during the week in New Japan, big shows, because your top guys would all go to New Japan, close quote. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic put a stop to all that stuff, But Metzler went on to discuss how the regular spots at Daly's Place has helped them preserve costs of running Dynamite since many of the AEW talent already live around Florida. Metzler didn't speculate on whether house shows would begin once the pandemic was over. However, Jim Ross touched on the same subject back in May of 2020, that said he believed they would. JR noted that house shows were vital in order for wrestlers to learn the fundamentals and work in front of a live audience. Totally agree with that. It was also revealed earlier in the year that Fyter Fest, one of the AEW's annual pay-per-view type shows, was originally meant to take place in Wembley Arena in London, England. Wembley has a long storied connection to pro wrestling dating back early 90s, something which Tony Khan was planning to capitalize on. All Elite Wrestling has been very lenient when it comes to outside bookings of their stars, as the company has been giving them permission to take indie bookings and even participate in tournaments and even shows outside of the promotion. This has changed in recent months due to the current pandemic, and All Elite Wrestling has been now a little bit more cautious when it comes to where and when their talents can work. Example, AEW star Joey Janela was pulled from the number one contenders tournament as he recently faced AJ Gray in an indie event at GCW, where his opponent had tested positive for COVID. Even though Janela himself didn't test positive for COVID, his exposure to AJ Gray, who did test positive, led to AEW playing it safe and pulling Joey from his scheduled match. AEW President and CEO Tony Khan recently had a conversation with Sports Illustrated where he talked about enforcing stricter restrictions and guidelines on AEW talents when it comes to taking indie and outside bookings not related to AEW. Quote, I implemented a policy where people were only supposed to work indie shows when certain conditions were met. There have been times when people did not take that seriously, so I have tightened up restrictions. I'll still allow it under certain conditions, but people need to look at me in the eye and say that the conditions are being met. Our talent and their opponent need to be tested before the show, and there also needs to be a good reason why the match is important. He goes on to say, this is important for everyone's safety as well as importance for our show. I've been flexible in the past because I thought it was good for the talent to have the opportunity to earn as well as great for the fans and the indies as a whole, which I totally agree with him. That is why you should totally allow AEW guys to appear on indie shows. This just helps everybody. We also don't run every night of the week, so it allows for talent to get some extra reps too. I agree with that as well. So we have a policy and it'll be enforced strictly. Goes further and says, I'm not going to end it, but we are taking a closer look at it more so now than ever. People need to come to me directly about this. I am going to be strict about what people can and can't do, but I won't say you won't see people make special appearances on independent shows because I think there is a lot of merit to that. Close quote. Totally agree with Tony Khan. You need to have these guys hit the indie scenes. The problem is just not right now with everything going on in the country. After much anticipation, we finally get the AEW Games announcement, and we have a full recap for you right here. So AEW's initial gaming offers feature a highly anticipated console game and 2 mobile games. This is from the AEW press release after they had the event, and we'll get into those 3 games. So they say, after revolutionizing the wrestling industry, AEW today shared its plans to reimagine the gaming world with the launch of AEW Games. The new venture will initially deliver 3 new gaming options to fans, including 2 mobile games and the highly anticipated console game being developed by the renowned video game developers Yuke's. Birth of AEW Games was ushered in a star-studded keynote. We had Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, Britt Baker, Aubrey Edwards, and it featured the introduction of wrestling gaming mastermind and newest AEW Games team member Hideki Gira Awashita, best known, I totally butchered that, best known for his work on the critically acclaimed No Mercy for 5th generation consoles. Quote, every once in a while, a revolutionary company comes along and changes everything. AEW is doing that today, said Kenny Omega, EVP of AEW. When I first signed with AEW, I asked Tony Khan to let me help assemble the best gaming team on the planet to make the best wrestling games ever. With masterminds like Gita and the incredible team at Yuke's, We are all well on the path to deliver a fresh, vastly superior gaming experience that our fans deserve. So, 2 mobile games will be available sooner for fans. AEW Casino Double or Nothing is anticipated to launch this winter, so that would probably be before the end of the year. And AEW Elite GM is anticipated to launch later in 2021. Developed by Karma Games, one of the fastest growing independent operators in the world, Double or Nothing will feature AEW branded versions of slots, blackjack, poker, roulette, along with AEW music, sounds, videos, wrestler, virtual avatars, gift packs, and more. Developed by Crystalline Games, AEW Elite GM, evolution of the GM simulator genre, taking the strategic elements of simulation and fantasy games to create a competitive and engaging space for the wrestling community to take part in, incorporating the expanding AEW brand and serving as a celebration of wrestling as a whole. Fans take on the role of GM, design a roster of wrestlers, setting up matches and running shows to generate revenue, new fans, and effects on wrestlers' stamina and morale. How cool is this? Quote, "It's amazing to think that less than 2 years ago, we sent shockwaves through the professional wrestling industry with the launch of AEW, and now we're rolling out our new revolutionary game," said Tony Khan, CEO and GM of AEW. "We make a point to listen to our fans, and we know that a rejuvenated and immersive gaming experience is critical to the overall wrestling experience. It's going to be cool to see our fans enjoy a next-gen console wrestling game that actually implements their feedback. This is just the beginning of a new era of gaming for wrestling fans around the world." Close quote. It's a tremendous honor to be part of the writing the first page in a new history of wrestling games. This was from Hirimo Fukurada, SVP at Ukes. Definitely check out the AEW Games website so you can get all the details. It's pretty dang cool. And we're super excited and we can't wait to play some features about the games. Some features about AEW Casino Double or Nothing. So we know who it was developed by. The game features tournaments, master your poker skills, participate in weekly sit and go and shootout tournaments where you can win unique AEW trophies and millions of chips and top our leaderboard. Play against the casino, try your luck at unique poker modes, challenge the dealer in split bet poker or set poker. MTT, multi-table tournaments. The most popular offline tournaments are now available online. Play at several tables with lots of worthy competitors and reach the final table and then win big. Players can win real AEW merchandise and prizes in special tournaments and sweepstakes. How fun is that? So we expect to get the AEW Casino game probably before the end of the year. Maybe that's what could happen in the next couple of weeks as far as an announcement goes. And then the other GM game will be next, and that's sometime in 2021. And who knows? I mean, we could be 2 years out, 2022, for the AEW console game. Since the new consoles have just came out, it's silly to go backtrack. So we'll see when this come out. But it's exciting news coming from AEW, that's for sure. Did you know you can get all the latest AEW news right from your phone? That's right, we're excited to announce the Pro Wrestling News Hub app. That's right, and it's free. You can get it for your iPhone. You can get it for your Google Android phone. And they're both free. You get all our breaking AEW news, information from Pro Wrestling News Hub right from your phone. You can just visit the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. What do you get? You get the latest news from Pro Wrestling News Hub. You get push notifications when a new post or story comes out. You get our podcast on the phone. You can leave us a review on iTunes, links to our social media, and so much more. All you have to do is, if you have an iPhone, go to the iTunes store and just look up Pro Wrestling News Hub and download it. Just type in AEW News. You can get our phone app, and guess it is free, my friends. It's free. So head over. You get all the latest news right from your phone, from your friends from Pro Wrestling News Hub, whether you have an iPhone or an Android. And it's best of all, it's free. All right, let's take a look at some of our social media stuff on the YouTubes. Jesus Caesar RR says, any official date or link on the release when it comes to AEW's uh, Unrivaled Series 2 action figures? Been at several Walmarts and finding nothing but the belts and the dude who points his finger and winks too much. He's talking about Kenny Omega? Just looking for the Legend Goldust, Dustin Rhodes, nothing else. Nothing online either. Now, I'm understanding that it's going to happen, start to get released in the next week or so. You'll start seeing it out in the wild, so to speak. So stay tuned. There should be some coming out soon, really. I mean, definitely before Black Friday, I can tell you that. On to the Facebooks. Gray checking in about his predictions on AEW Full Gear. Let's see what he has to say. I think Darby should win because, in my opinion, now it's the perfect time for him to hold the TNT Championship. I heard multiple times rumors about Sting. Will gonna help him to hold the title if it will happen. That would be a shocking moment. That's the one thing I thought about too. I think FTR is going to win with cheating. No, they didn't. But I hope the Young Bucks win because they said they won't win. They'll never fight for the tag championships again, and that would be weird. That's true. And yeah, I'm agreeing with you, Mr. Perry. You picked Kenny and Moxley. It'll be like a rematch of last year, Full Gear. But I don't know why management didn't show us Kenny versus Hangman the last Dynamite or made it Mox versus Kenny last year's rematch. But maybe Mox drops the title to Kenny in next year's Revolution, but it will not be too long for that. What do you say? Do you think Moxley loses? So we know that it's not going to happen at AEW Revolution. We know that's going to happen in the first Dynamite in December. Could that be the time, a big shocking moment? Plus, they give a break and then get Kenny Omega start his big run going into the new year. Or does Moxley hold on to the title? I think Moxley has faced everyone. I'm not really sure what else he can do at this point except to lose to Kenny Omega. So if he was going to losing it on Dynamite would be big news. I think maybe that might happen in December. I wonder if that's the big stuff Tony Khan is talking about. Gray goes on to say, we asked for a grade for AEW Full Gear. He gave, no doubt, going to give it an A+ grade once again. AEW never disappoints its fans. Totally agree with him there. On the AEW Tag Team Champions, the Young Bucks, Gray says, what a wonderful match of FTR and the Bucks was. I felt like Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson wanted to write a love letter to tag team wrestling. Interesting. Tributes to past generation teams that inspired both of the teams. FTR playing homage to the Hart Foundation and Steiner Brothers. Bucks paying homage to the Dudleys and Hardys. And then the DIY spot, I remember that. Man, I cannot do justice to that finish. It was storytelling perfected. Blank, bleep, doesn't get any better than that. For years, FTR have played down the Bucks as being just flip-flop guys. Their whole motto was no flips, just fists. Then Cash started hitting super kicks, and then he almost had Matt beaten. He decided to show the Bucks how flips are actually done. He showed the middle finger to what he and Dax have always preached, and it cost him the match. He missed a 450, ran into a barefooted super kick from Matt, and 1, 2, 3. That and the phrase "poetic justice" cannot be shown through a professional messaging match any better. I saw that too, and I totally agree with you there. I adored every second of the match, and the mind-blowing part is that I believe they have an even better match between them. The chemistry of these four have is off the charts, and the biggest joke in professional wrestling today will be when some goof says Bucks can't tell a story or work psychology. This take should have never existed after the match with Omega and Ibushi in 2018 and Omega and Hangman this year, but this match with FTR should bury that opinion. We need FTR versus Bucks too when crowds come back, and not just when crowds come back. We need it in the main event of an AEW pay-per-view. I agree there. Tag team wrestling is important to the company. Being a tag team doesn't mean you're being wasted in this company. Tag team wrestling finally relevant again in North America after 20 years. Well said, Gray. I totally agree with you 100%. This was my great match. FTR and all the different spots. And the 450 at the end, like all that stuff was great storytelling. And they had me. At first, I was kind of like, this is dull. And then it just picked up, and then it blew me out of the water. Gray on Darby Allin being the champion. Finally, Darby gets what he wants for a long time, so we get a new face of TNT. NXT champion, and I was shocked and about to flip my glass table when I see that Darby's victory. Love, can't wait to see how his title reign goes. I totally agree with him there. Finally, he said about my grades for Full Gear. He said, agree with all the grades and stars. John Silver versus Orange Cassidy was an entertaining match. Silver has a great kicks, and like he was trying to prove, he is a pay-per-view material too. Is he? I think he's slowly building. He's one of those guys that we didn't think would be big in AEW, but really it was his BTE work, being the elite. I always have to say that so I don't say BET. BTE. So that work really kind of catapulted him, and now it's really paying dividends. And I would watch him. I would be interesting to see. I don't think he's going to win a belt anytime soon, but his character is definitely on the rise. That's for sure. On to the Twitters about WWE files to trademark WCW names Cody initially filed for. TKO Wrestling _TKO said, shame, not that AEW didn't give them, but that no one is using WCW. Yeah, no one, I don't think will ever use WCW again, really. I don't think, and WWE owns the name WCW, so that's not going to happen, other than them using it. And maybe they'll do a 20th show, and they'll call it WCW, and Vince will ruin that too. On Cody Rhodes having the desire to run for Senate. We had this on Pro Wrestling News Hub. V. Lymphaticus says he'd better wait until every boomer in GA, Georgia, is dead. They won't vote for people with neck tattoos. When he put that out there, I was like, actually, you're kind of right. I think you're very right on that could be a problem for him. Again, ever since Cody got that neck tattoo, man, he's kind of, I'm just not a fan of it. It still bothers me every time I see it. I'm sorry. But you know who doesn't bother me? Mr. Fourth Row. And he's checking in right now.
It's a go for another phone call there from Mr. Fourth Row. Hey, AEW Week in Review and Mr. Mark. So it's time to get my thoughts and comments for Full Gear that was this past Saturday. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a very good pay-per-view, and honestly, it needed to be, since we are not getting another one of these until February, which, when I was thinking about that, I was like, God, that just seems like crazy, but it's in a way it's good. AEW is not necessarily doing one of these every single month to really build those storylines and to make these pay-per-views more special, in my opinion. Definitely agree with you, Mark, that the NWA World's Women's Championship was better than the AEW Women's Championship. Just seemed like Shida and Nyla Rose just wasn't having the peaks and the valleys and the fights and the comebacks that they probably could have. So I'm not sure what that was all about. Of course, I think I've got every single match correct except for one. So some of the highlights, some of the stuff that really I enjoyed, and that was the match of Sammy Guerrero and Matt Hardy. It was kind of fun. Of course, we knew that this was going to get filmed ahead of time, so they could really put a lot of the work into some of the transitions and camera cuts and things like that. I was kind of really disappointed sometime when the first ring came about, and there wasn't any calls from really the announcers saying, "Oh my God, there's a ring right there," and that kind of thing. So it was kind of interesting to see that Private Party and all of them were getting in there and actually having a match, impromptu match there in that particular ring. So that was interesting for me, but I really enjoyed it. Didn't necessarily, in my opinion, have to have the blood after the garage was shut from Sammy Guerrera. We could have easily just worked it that he got knocked out because Matt Hardy was going to win that. But great to see the cameos from a lot of people. Of course, Senior Benjamin, and of course Hurricane Helms and Helms, the reporter from the Daily Planet, or the news reporter, or whatever his character was back it was I think that was even more than 2 years ago when he portrayed the news reporter. But anyways, that's great. Good to see Darby Allin win the TNT Championship. Of course, I called that. Thought that was good, and very good to see the Young Bucks win the Tag Team Championship. Of course, I think that was pretty much a given, like I said, just because of where AEW is and things of that nature. So that was great. I thought how they put the matches in made a lot of sense in the order for the pay-per-view. That was good. The championship final match, the AEW championship, Moxley and Kingston. I thought it was pretty good. Little strange. Didn't necessarily have to do all the blood, but because this is an I Quit match, it was good. So for them to have that's just the way it's going to go. So overall, I thought it was good. I'm going to definitely give them probably an A for this, just a plain straight A for the pay-per-view. Thought it was really good. And then want to go ahead and comment a little bit about the games announcement. I really thought they did a great job, really thinking these games out. Of course, you're going to have a console game for some those hardcore gamers that are console gamers, for a game that keeps them involved and and gets the investment. And then with the mobile games, always with a mobile game, they've always talked that the mobile games are supposed to be a casual game, something you can pick up for a few minutes while you're standing in line at the DMV or the bank or whatever, as the cliche used to go, and be able to play for a few minutes and things of that nature. So I thought that was really good that the Double or Nothing casino game is going to be that. So that's great to see that they really thought about that for one of their mobile games. And then of course you're going to be able to actually win tangible things, so that's something that's fantastic that I really enjoy, that the shows that AEW is really caring about their fans and trying to make that connection. And I think that's kind of why I enjoy really watching AEW more than those other stuffs, other companies. So that's just something that I think they're doing really well. And as long as they keep that in focus and make that a priority and don't forget about that's why they're here, that's why they're doing this, that's why they're branching out and doing all these kind of things, is going to make them be an eye on them, a target for eyes and views and audience and things of that nature. And of course, when we get the world back to the way it was back in March, that we'll be able to get back on the road and they'll be able to sell out arenas, and maybe even bigger arenas than they were before. So that's going to be something and fantastic to see once that gets. But I think AEW is doing that right when it comes to all their games in summation. So anyways, that is it for me. And once again, that is my view, not from the cheap seats, not from the most expensive seats, but from the fourth row.
All right, thanks to Mr. Fourth Row checking in. And remember, next week's question of the week, should PAC reform Death Triangle? Now, personally, I was thinking about this. I think Kenny Omega is going to beat Jon Moxley in December, and I think we'll get Kenny Omega Lance Archer matchup coming up soon. That's what I think. So next week's question, should PAC reform Death Triangle? Again, thanks, Mr. Fourth Row, as always, checking in. You know what to do. Email podcast@ProWrestlingNewsHub or call 888-430-7692. Extension 3. Follow us everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, especially YouTube. Pro Wrestling News Hub. Give us a like and subscribe, definitely there, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. Show notes, prowrestlingnewshub.com/AEW-podcast. Join us on the Discord. We're talking fantasy wrestling with AEW. And that's it for me, folks. Thanks for listening. Mahalo. God bless. Stay safe out there. Put your mask on, and I will see you all later.